Hey guys, welcome to my first episode of 31 Nights of Halloween. This is October 1st, and guys, I'm going to be doing a movie review on... Friday the 13th. This will be through the first 4 movies. Part 1 through 4. Here are my reviews on Friday the 13th. The first movie, I gotta say, was a really it's an entertaining old 80s slasher flick. It consists of a few, maybe 13 counselors going back to Camp Crystal Lake after the incident where a murder happened, and they decided to go back and try to, get things going again. But problem is, murders start happening again. So we got to find out who the murderer is. If you have not seen Friday the 13th, don't worry, I will not spoil it for you. But I gotta say, out of all the Friday the 13th movies, it is the first part of the franchise, but it's still not my favorite. I loved the third part. And the second and fourth part way more, and I love this one. But the first one is still a good presentation. It's a good beginner to a good franchise like Friday the 13th. Though I wish it was more Jason in part 1. I will say that much. But part 1 is a very, if you do like really campy slasher movies, I mean Friday the 13th is just right up your alley because it's just a fun movie to watch. And I gotta say, it's really enjoyable. Though it is probably the weakest out of the 3 most classic horror movies. I mean, the big ones for me are A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. It's probably the weakest out of them because it just did not have what Nightmare on Elm Street or Halloween did, and that's just originalism. I understand it took place out in the woods and at a camp, but how many movies have we seen that took place out in woods and a camp? There's really a lot of movies that took that. Friday the 13th, though, is one of the top ones that really succeeded on that idea. But I will give the first Friday the 13th movie, I'll give it a solid B-. B- for Friday the 13th. It's a very fun, generic, kind of campy slasher movie from the 80s. But let's get on to part 2. Friday the 13th part 2. This is when Jason Voorhees comes into the picture. At first, he was just a myth and more of just a story that they would tell around the campfire. And in part 2, this is where he actually comes out and begins to actually slash and hack people, or hack and slash. And I gotta say, part 2 is actually a bigger and better movie than the first part, in my opinion. This is when he comes out with a sack on his. You know what? Shit. Alright. He has a sack on his head, a potato sack, Jason does in this movie. So if you've seen the figure of why he has a potato sack on him, like you look at you look at the picture and say, why does Jason Voorhees have a potato sack on his head? Doesn't he have a hockey mask? Well, this is the movie that he doesn't have the hockey mask on. This is where Jason's beginning as a real character. And, he's a really good character. I mean, other than the fact that he doesn't talk, he doesn't have no personality, the only thing that you can tell from him is that he's a mama's boy. In this movie, he really is a mama's boy. The only reason why he's doing what he's doing is because of his mom. And no spoilers, if you haven't seen the first one, I won't spoil it for you. The only reason why he's doing what he's doing is because of his mom. So, yeah, I gotta say, this one has a little bit more suspense, a little bit more gritty tone than the first one. I feel this movie is a little bit more gritty. I will say, though, the slashing in the movie, the killings, are a lot creepier. It did creep me out. The idea that a guy is going around as a dead, drowned boy in a potato sack mask is running around a Crystal Lake and is killing people, and I live in Ohio, so, that doesn't help the situation. It's kind of creepy. And I gotta say, it's one of my favorite parts of the franchise. It really is. I mean, it doesn't have the hockey mask. It doesn't have the originality that the Part 3 and Part 4 did. But it's still a fun, campy movie, and I gotta give it a B for Friday the 13th, Part 2. the 13th Part 3 in 3D. This is the first horror movie I've ever seen. So, you know, there's something special about this video. It's October 1st. I gotta do my first video, and if this one has to be in there. This is when Jason Voorhees gets the hockey mask, and this is when he goes out and has the most fun. I gotta say, my favorite scene in this movie, my favorite death scene in this movie, if you've not seen the movie, I hate to spoil it, but there's a lot of deaths, and you're gonna probably predict that this is gonna be in there. And if you have not seen Friday the 13th, what is wrong with you? It's probably the crossbow scene. I really enjoyed that scene. It was just something that came out. I loved that scene. But I gotta say that the ending to this movie is probably my favorite, though. Probably my favorite ending. It's a really fun ending. But the movie's fun. It has they started getting more humorous. There's a little bit more humor going into Part 3. A little bit more gross scenes. I mean, there's scenes that I felt that were necessary for Part 3. But I gotta love it because it was the first horror movie I've seen. So I can't just sit here and bash it. I can bash it for what it is. I mean, there's so many, you know, dumb scenes in this movie that weren't necessary. But I gotta say, the movie did turn out to be fun. And it's one of my favorite parts of the franchise, so I'm gonna give it a B+. I mean, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D is just fun. And that's all it is. There's some creepy ass tones in the movie, so don't be thinking I'm not gonna say it's creepy. It's a creepy movie. It's just, you know, a little bit more humorous, a little bit more out and open, more fun than the first two parts, in my opinion. So if you have maybe a group of friends and you come across Friday the 13th Part 3 on television, slip it on. Tell me what you guys think. You know, it is when Jason first gets his mask, and there's not much to know about Jason's background, besides the fact he's just a killer out in a camp. I mean, that's all Jason is. So let's get to Part 4. Part 4, the final chapter. This is the movie that I first saw Corey Feldman in, who plays Tommy. I almost did it. I almost did my, oh man. I don't need to do that. Yeah. Alright. Anyway. I almost did my Corey Feldman impression. Anyway. This movie has some of the creepiest scenes, I gotta say, I've seen in Friday the 13th. It really does. There's really some terrible acting in this movie. I mean, despite, you know, what I haven't said no acting in the first 3 movies, I haven't really talked about the acting. All the acting's not great. But this one, it certainly comes off to me as, you know, now it's just for fun. You can tell they had fun making the movie. I can tell by watching these people act. You know, it's more of a fun, generic camp movie. But there is some really creepy elements to this movie and a lot of fun to this movie that you can have a fun time watching it with. And I gotta say, as a horror movie goes, it's a really good one. And if you are a huge fan of the slasher, 80s slasher or 90s slasher movies, I mean, this one's just right up your alley. And I do recommend Friday the 13th, the final chapter, because there is a lot of cool-ass moments with Jason Voorhees and a lot of cool, iconic scenes. I mean, the guy with the hockey mask who runs around with a machete. There's nothing more iconic than a guy running around with a hockey mask and machete. So you gotta say, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, is going to get a B+. It's a fun movie. And that's really all I gotta say about all these 4 movies. And the reason why I'm only reviewing the first 4 is because those are probably the best out of the franchise. That's where they should have ended, but they kept going and going. But guys, what are your thoughts on Friday the 13th? What is your favorite Friday the 13th movie? And if I had to say mine, it's going to be Friday the 13th Part 3 because it was the first horror movie I've ever seen. So it stuck with me for all these years. But guys, comment down below. Let me know what your favorite Friday the 13th movie is. And guys, I can't wait to make more Halloween videos. Thanks for watching, guys.